A $45 bag from a survival store says 72-hour food supply for one adult. That sounds reasonable until you do the math. The serving count on the back adds up to roughly 1,800 calories a day. And that's only if you measure every scoop exactly. Cook anything under stress, pour a little heavy, and you're looking at closer to 1,500. A person doing physical labor in an emergency burns 3,000 to 4,000 calories. So on day 2, you're hungry. On day 3, you're rationing, and you paid $45 for the privilege. A $45 bag of white rice and dry beans from any grocery store contains roughly 55,000 calories. That feeds one person for 3 weeks. That's not a survival secret. That's not some obscure technique. That's arithmetic. The entire survival industry is built on the gap between what the packaging implies and what the numbers actually say. We're going to close that gap right now. Here's the thing about the survival gear industry. It's not selling you preparedness. It's selling you the feeling of preparedness, which is a completely different product. And the reason that gap exists between feeling ready and actually being ready comes down to a set of decisions every company in this space has made for the same reason every industry makes similar decisions: margin. The freeze-dried food market is the clearest example. The pitch is irresistible. Buy a bucket, seal it in your basement, forget about it for 25 years. Open it when civilization fails. Eat. That sounds like a system. The problem is that the calorie math doesn't hold. ReadyWise's 72-hour kit delivers 5,460 total calories across 3 days. That's 1,820 calories per day, the bare minimum for a sedentary adult woman at rest. Not enough for a man. Nowhere near enough for either of them under physical or psychological stress, which is, incidentally, the exact condition an emergency produces. World War II-era military C rations provided 3,600 to 4,000 calories per day because the people designing them understood what physical labor actually demands. And that 1,820 figure assumes perfect execution. One company, then called Wise Company, now rebranded ReadyWise, faced a class action lawsuit in the Central District of California in 2017, alleging their kits delivered less than half the daily calories advertised. The settlement paid class members up to $1,400 per product. Independent lab testing later found Wise products had oxygen levels of 18.25% inside the sealed bags. Normal air is 21%. That means the oxygen absorbers weren't working, which means the 25-year shelf life claim was fiction from the day the bag was sealed. Mountain House products tested at 0.16% oxygen, 110 times lower. That difference is the entire product promise, and one brand wasn't delivering it. Even when the oxygen absorbers work correctly, shelf life depends on temperature in a way nobody at the point of sale tells you. Every 10 degrees Fahrenheit above 75 roughly halves the effective storage life. A bucket stored in an attic or garage in Georgia or Texas, where summer temperatures regularly hit 90 to 100 degrees, is not lasting 25 years. It might last 5. The fine print in the storage instructions tells you this. Almost nobody reads the fine print before buying. The pre-made kit problem runs the same logic. A family 4-person, 72-hour kit, the kind sold at big box stores and survival retailers, typically includes 1 gallon of total water, 1 gallon, for 4 people for 72 hours. FEMA recommends 1 gallon per person per day as a minimum, which is 12 gallons for that family over 3 days. The kit delivers 8% of what's needed. The 4 emergency food bars inside provide roughly 600 calories per person per day. Reviewers of popular kits consistently document the same defects: compasses that arrive broken, ferro rods too weak to light tinder, wire saws that snap under real use, flashlights dead on arrival. This isn't bad luck. It's the predictable outcome of a supply chain optimized to hit a price point rather than to perform. The person buying a $45 kit after a news cycle about supply chain disruptions is not comparison shopping calories per dollar. They're buying reassurance. The industry knows this. You can opt out of it completely by doing one thing: looking at the numbers. So here is what the numbers actually support. and where people who have been doing this seriously for years actually shop. Start with food, because food is where the math is most extreme. A 25-pound bag of white rice from a warehouse store costs approximately $16 and contains roughly 41,400 calories. At 2,000 calories per day, that's 20 days of food for one person at $0.00039 per calorie. A freeze-dried pouch from Mountain House costs $10.99 for 560 calories, $0.0196 per calorie. That's roughly 50 times more expensive per calorie for a product that requires careful temperature storage to even approach its advertised shelf life. Dry pinto beans from any grocery store run about 42 cents per pound for 1,500 calories per pound. Rolled oats cost 10 cents to 20 cents per serving. Rice and beans together form a complete protein covering all essential amino acids. A full year's supply of bulk staples for one person. 300 pounds of white rice, 150 pounds of dry beans, 50 pounds of rolled oats, plus cooking oil, salt, and spices costs roughly $300 to $400 total. Mountain House's marketed one-year supply runs $6,000 to $8,000 and still delivers only 1,732 calories per day. You are paying 15 to 20 times more for inferior caloric output. Now, the shelf life question, because this is where people push back. White rice, sealed in Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers and stored in food-grade buckets at 75 degrees or below, lasts 25 to 30 years. This is documented by food science research at Brigham Young University, conducted over decades because long-term food storage is a core religious practice for the LDS Church, an institution with no commercial interest in the answer. Dry beans store similarly. Rolled oats last 20 to 30 years. Honey, salt, and white sugar store indefinitely. The storage system is not complicated. Food-grade 5-gallon HDPE buckets with lids available at any hardware store for $5 to $6. Mylar bags at minimum 5 mil wall thickness, available in bulk for about $1 per bag. And oxygen absorbers at 300 cubic centimeters per gallon of container volume, about 20 cents each. Fill the bag, drop in the absorbers, heat seal the top with a flat iron, fold the sealed bag into the bucket, close the lid. You'll spend $8 to $10 per bucket, including bag and absorbers. 5 of them hold 75 to 100 pounds of staples with shelf lives measured in decades. The one mistake people make even when they've done the research, using Mylar bags that are too thin. Many bags sold online report total thickness across both walls combined. A bag advertised as 14 mils is sometimes 7 mils per side, which is correct. But bags advertised as 5 mils total, 2.5 mils per side, allow moisture and oxygen to penetrate the foil layer over time and are essentially decorative. Buy bags clearly labeled as 5 mils per side, or order from suppliers who specify wall thickness rather than combined measurement. Now, thrift stores, which are the most underused sourcing channel in practical preparedness. Most people walk past a cast iron skillet at Goodwill because it looks old and rough. They're making the wrong call. Pre-1960s cast iron from American manufacturers was machine polished after casting, a finishing step that produced an almost glass-smooth cooking surface, the kind that develops non-stick seasoning quickly and holds it. The major domestic manufacturers eliminated that step somewhere in the mid-1960s to cut labor costs, switching to the rough, pebbly sand cast texture sold today. In direct comparison testing, a well-maintained 1920s or 1930s cast iron piece consistently outperforms modern equivalents in non-stick performance, heat distribution, and seasoning retention. It costs $3 to $8 at an estate sale or thrift store. The new version of the same pan costs $25 to $30 and is objectively worse. It works over campfire. It's a wood stove, gas, electric, and induction. No electronics, no coating to chip off, nothing to break. Identifying vintage cast iron takes about 5 minutes to learn. Smooth cooking surface, thinner walls, slightly lighter weight for the size. A raised slash across the bottom called a gate mark indicates pre-1890, casting and extreme age. The names Griswold and Wagner on the bottom indicate the best American manufacturers. Any piece found under $10 at a thrift store is worth owning regardless of brand. The same logic applies to wool blankets. A military surplus wool blanket at a thrift store runs $3 to $10. Wool retains roughly 80% of its insulating capability when wet, a critical property at the exact moment you need it most. It doesn't melt or ignite when a spark hits it. It's naturally fire-resistant and self-extinguishing. World War II and Korean War era. Military blankets were 100% long staple wool made to strict government procurement specifications. Modern commercial blankets increasingly blend in 20 to 30% synthetics to cut costs. A simple burn test settles it. A single fiber from genuine wool chars, curls, and smells like burning hair. Synthetics melt. If the fiber melts, it's a blend. Pre-World War II hand tools follow the same pattern. Vintage Diston hand saws found at flea markets for $5 to $20 cut faster and hold an edge longer than modern big box equivalents because they were made from higher carbon steel at tolerances no longer economically viable in mass production. Vintage axes, hatchets, and hand planes work the same way. Pre-World War II, Stanley hand planes used precision cast bodies, rosewood handles, and high-quality tool steel, available at estate sales for $10 to $50 versus $200 to $400 for premium modern equivalents. These tools require sharpening, a skill that takes 30 minutes to learn, and nothing else. No electricity, no batteries, no warranty you'll never need because the tool doesn't fail. For water, the best kept secret in any hardware store is a $5 to $10 bag of calcium hypochlorite, sold as pool shock for maintaining swimming pools. 1 pound at 65 to 78% concentration treats 10,000 to 16,000 gallons of water. Stored dry, it remains effective for 10 or more years. Liquid bleach, what most people stockpile, degrades in 6 months and treats a fraction of the volume per dollar. The math is not close. The requirement is simple. The product must list calcium hypochlorite as the sole active ingredient with no added algicides, clarifiers, or fragrances. Dosing requires care, but not expertise. Dissolve 1 teaspoon per 2 gallons of water to make a chlorine solution, then add 1 part solution to 100 parts water to treat it. Clear instructions are on every preparedness extension website. For filtration, a Sawyer Mini costs $20 to $26 and filters 100,000 gallons at 0.1 micron, removing bacteria and protozoa. At 0.00025 per gallon treated, it is effectively free filtration for a decade of household use. For cooking and food preservation, a pressure canner is the most useful $100 to $140 purchase in this space. A standard 23-quart aluminum model handles everything: meat, beans, soups, vegetables. Our home canned meat in mason jars has a documented shelf life of 7 or more years and costs roughly 25 cents to 50 cents per serving to produce, versus $2 to $5 per serving for commercial freeze-dried equivalents. The jars themselves cost $9 to $12 for a dozen and are reusable indefinitely with $3 to $4 replacement lid packs. These are tools. They don't expire. Restaurant supply stores deserve a longer look than they typically get. Cambro polycarbonate containers, the square storage tubs used in every professional kitchen in the country, are NSF certified, FDA food contact approved, rated from -40 to 210 degrees Fahrenheit, and essentially indestructible under real use. A 22-quart Cambro runs $15 to $25 through any restaurant supplier. The functionally identical container in a survival store runs $30 to $50. The commercial version was designed for daily industrial use. It is overbuilt for most emergency applications. No survival industry markup required. And for military surplus, the critical skill is reading the tag. Genuine U.S. military surplus carries a national stock number, a 13-digit code. Digits 5 and 6 in that sequence identify the country of manufacture. 00 and 01 indicate the United States. No NSN means the item is commercial, regardless of what the seller claims. The genuine USGI poncho liner, the quilted blanket soldiers call a wooby, costs $15 to $25 used, weighs 1.5 pounds, compresses to the size of a football, and provides meaningful warmth down to about 50 degrees on its own. Amazon knockoffs at the same price use batting that compresses to nothing after 2 uses. The tag tells you which is which before you spend $1. Venezuela, between 2014 and 2021, is the version of this story that plays out at the longest time scale. The economy contracted roughly 75% over that period, the worst peacetime economic collapse in 45 years by most measures. Medicine shortages hit 85% by early 2017. Over 7 million people eventually left the country. The crisis lasted not days or weeks, but years, which means no reasonable personal stockpile was ever going to be sufficient. What kept people fed was backyard food production, informal neighborhood networks, access to US dollars when the bolivar became worthless, and the ability to offer a skill or produce something tradable. The government's own food distribution program was systematically tied to political compliance and withheld from communities that organized independently. The people who fared best weren't the ones with the largest stockpiles. They were the ones with productive land, useful skills, and neighbors they trusted. In February 2021, Texas experienced a grid failure that ERCOT later confirmed came within 4 minutes and 37 seconds of a complete statewide blackout, the kind that would have taken weeks to restore under even ideal repair conditions. Nearly half of installed generating capacity went offline simultaneously. About 49% of the state lost running water. The average outage lasted 42 hours. Some areas went 4 or more days without power. At least 246 people died. Are most from hypothermia in their own homes or from carbon monoxide poisoning after running generators and gas grills indoors for heat. What protected people had nothing to do with anything a survival store sells. Gas camp stoves with full propane canisters let people cook and make hot water. Stored water, tubs filled before pressure dropped, containers filled in advance, got families through the days when municipal systems failed. Sleeping bags rated below 40 degrees were the difference between sleeping safely and not. People with neighbors who checked on them, who gathered into a single room with blankets and body heat, fared better than people who isolated and waited for infrastructure to return. In Argentina, after the December 2001 banking freeze, when the government capped withdrawals at $250 per week overnight and the middle class lost access to its own money instantly, stockpiles depleted in weeks. What scaled was bartering. Community troop clubs that started in 1995 with 20 participants grew to over 2 million regular members across more than 4,500 nodes within months of the crisis. They traded food, services, and locally printed currency called creditos. People with practical skills, cooking, plumbing, medicine, language instruction, had something to trade indefinitely. People whose only asset was consumer goods depleted that inventory quickly. The analysts who documented the crisis most thoroughly identified cash, gold, and practical skills as the 3 things that retained real value across the collapse. No specific piece of gear appeared on that list. Puerto Rico, after Hurricane Maria in September 2017, tells the same story at a longer time horizon. The average household went 84 days without electricity and 68 days without running water. Some rural communities weren't reconnected for nearly 11 months. The original official death toll was 64. A Harvard University study revised that figure to 2,975, with roughly a third of excess deaths attributed to delayed or disrupted medical care rather than the storm itself. No personal stockpile sustains a family for 84 days. What did sustain communities were mutual aid centers that organized food distribution and collective kitchens, and over the following years, individual solar panels with battery storage. By the 5-year mark after Maria, more than 40,000 households had installed rooftop solar, adding over 250 megawatts of distributed capacity. A mountain community microgrid ran through the next major hurricane and kept operating when the central grid failed again. The people who made it weren't better supplied than everyone else. They were more connected. 3 different crises, 3 different countries, 3 different causes. The same pattern: stockpiles, buy time, skills, and community networks buy survival. Here's what you can actually do this week with under $50 and about an hour. Go to any grocery store and buy a 10-pound bag of white long-grain rice and a 5-pound bag of dry pinto or black beans. Pick up a container of salt and a bottle of cooking oil. Go to a hardware store and get one food-grade 5-gallon HDPE bucket with a lid. Look for the number 2 recycling symbol and food-safe stamping. As white or natural color, not orange. While you're there, pick up 1 bag of calcium hypochlorite pool shock, 65 to 78% concentration, sole active ingredient. That runs $5 to $10. Order a pack of 5 ml Mylar bags for 5-gallon buckets and a pack of 300 cubic centimeters oxygen absorbers online. They'll arrive in a few days for under $15. When they do, seal the rice and beans separately into the bags with absorbers, fold the sealed bags into the bucket, close the lid, label it with today's date. You've just created roughly 15,000 to 20,000 calories of properly sealed food storage for under $50 total. Enough to sustain one adult for 1 to 2 weeks at full rations. The pool shock in your cabinet will treat thousands of gallons of water and will still be working a decade from now. That's the highest leverage starting point, not a kit. Not a bucket from a survival store, just rice, beans, a bucket, and chemistry you learned in 10 minutes. That's the whole idea. Now you know how to do it. Take care.